uh Start webinar. Here we go. You ready, Liz?
Yeah.
All right, let me make sure YouTube cues. It's almost there. Cool. Looks like we are live. All right, amazing. Cool. So we are
Awesome.
live in YouTube. What's up, YouTube? I'm starting now. Amazing. Cool. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I know a lot of you guys are going to get in here with us, so we'll give you a second to get organized. First and foremost, in the chat, if you guys watching live, if you can hear me, type yes in the chat for me. I want to make sure that you guys can hear me. Type yes in the chat if you are here. Let's see. You guys should have access to the chat. Chat. Can you guys hear me in the chat? Type yes. Um, People are raising their hand, but they can't seem to chat. What is that? There we go. Somebody is typing yes. Give me a second, guys. Oh, I see the problem. Zoom has changed so many things. All right, now you all should have yes to the chat. Okay, there we go. Amazing. Sorry about that. Chaos. I'll tell you. Like, I don't know how many of you guys use Zoom in any capacity on a daily basis like we do. I swear every single time I come in here, something is different. So, what is crazy, we have already reached our maximum attendance here in this room. So, some of you guys might get messages from friends and buddies. Tell them to go watch on our YouTube at Lensbaby USA on YouTube. So, that said, if you don't know me, first and foremost, I'm Michael Anthony. I'm the vice president, board member, and partner here in Lensbaby. Actually, celebrating now my 10th year in this wild, crazy company, helping all you amazing photographers do the cool things that you do. And so I'm super excited to do this with you. We wanted to have a cool, fun, enthralling summer conference. And so here we are. We're going to hang out with you guys for a few hours this evening. And we are excited to do that with you. One of the things that I will tell you first and foremost is that this is interactive. So all of you have the ability, if you go down in the bottom and you press Q&A to get engaged with us, because we will be answering questions after both Liz and Kathy's amazing presentation. So one of the things that you want to do, if you have questions, if you put them in the chat, I can almost 100% tell you they're going to get lost because we want you guys to engage. We want you to show up. So if you have questions, put them in the Q&A. So at the bottom, there is a link to Q&A. You want to press that little button and then boom, you're going to be able to connect with us. Okay. So a couple of things. Yeah, there's a lag. I mean, there's 300. It's the internet. It'll sort itself out as we go live. So sorry about that, guys. We don't control that. But a couple things we do control, what I'm excited to tell you, just so you know, this is being recorded. So for everyone who's asking, yes, it is recorded. You don't have to worry about not getting access to that. In fact, as soon as we're done here, we're going to give you access to the recording. We're going to put that on our social media. It'll stay on our YouTube. And of course, for those of you in the back end and the hub, we're going to give you access to that. We'll post it in Lensbaby Unplugged, all the things so you don't have to worry about the recording. I would love to know, just so we have a gauge on the room, where are you watching from right now? So YouTube, I see you guys over here. My group here, I see you here. We got Phoenix, Michigan, Illinois. I'm just going to go so fast. Florida, Australia, Boston. Oh my God, so fast. California. Somebody just typed yes. I don't know where yes is. This is amazing. Guys, super cool. YouTube, I see you guys. There's chat over here. Get engaged. I see you, Mike and Keith and Michelle. And then it looks like another 45 of you guys there. So amazing. That means we have something like 350 people here with us. You guys are awesome. So one of the things that we wanted to do, I had a conversation with my business partner here at Lensbaby yesterday. And one of the things that we wanted to do was share for all of you who are attending live something really special. So as you may know, we have our summer sale going on right now. And I was like, look, we've got 300 people. Why don't we do something special? And we're like, cool, we're going to give everybody who comes here an extra $30 discount that you can go use on our store right now for everything but Twist 28. Don't ask me. It's brand new. We can't discount that. But we're going to put the link in here. We're going to share that throughout the event over the next couple of hours. So all of you can get an extra special discount. That said, we're so excited to have you here. I know Liz is excited. This is a event that we wanted to do because we love continuing to educate you guys. Because we know, like, even though Lensbaby is this beautiful, amazing thing. And trust me, I'm going to say this as somebody who lives and breathes this brand. Sometimes you're just like, this is so frustrating. I just want to feel like when I have this in my hand, I know how to use it. And that's why we do these events. So whether we do them weekly or quarterly or monthly or yearly, we always want to make it about helping you understand how to use Lensbaby, how to get the best out of it, and most importantly, how to feel comfortable with the lenses that we make in your hands and on your camera. That said, I'm going to turn it over to the amazing Liz, who is going to do a presentation that she's done on in person many times that we get to see online for the first time ever. So I'm super, super excited about that. That said, in the chat, my friends, what I want you to do, give it up, show some love, some claps emojis, some fires, whatever it is you want to share. And let's welcome the amazing Liz here to the stage. My friend, the stage is yours.
Hey everybody! Oh, thanks for all the love. Thank you for the warm welcome. Thank you to Michael and the Lensbaby team for inviting me and opening this opportunity to share. I really appreciate that, and I thank you all for being here. This is what it's about. It is about Lensbaby is about community, and you are a part of that. You are here, and you are now a part of it. So, like Michael said, we want it to be interactive and connective. And that's what part of community is. And another part of community is inspiring and encouraging one another. So that's another thing we're here to do this evening. So I know I'll be inspired by you as well. And why Lensbaby? We recognize, I love Lensbaby's new like tagline or marketing line. It is, we're not trying to be different. We are different. And you are different. You have a unique way of seeing the world. And we are grateful for that. And we can't wait to help to equip you to share that, to share your different with the world. And, we can't wait to see it and experience it. So, that said, I'm going to jump into my presentation. So just give me a second here. Yes, we love different. Um, so let me share my screen, get my presentation up here. Okay, so I thought I would start by delving into the power of light, and how you can tell your different, unique, compelling story with emotion using the light that you have. I am Liz. I am Elizabeth Wilson Photography. Note that my last name has two L's. So if you go searching for me somewhere and you get stuck, it might be because you didn't spell my last name correctly. So it is Wilson with two L's. And pretty much everywhere, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, it's all Elizabeth Wilson Photography. So find me there. Connect with me there. Okay, I need to adjust something really quickly. Oops, sorry. I went back. Okay, so what we're covering. We're going to talk about some basics of light, some types of light, the temperature of light, and how to control light. Now, if you are a seasoned photographer, you may start with this presentation with me and think, oh my gosh, Liz, like I already know this stuff. And if you're starting to think like that, I want you to hold on with me. I want you to embrace this presentation with a beginner's mindset. Because I think as photographers, as artists, and as people, we get into, I'm not going to call it a rut, but I might call it a habit, a way of doing things. And it may be working for you. And yet there may be more for you by looking at things that you do just all the time, the same way over and over, a little differently. So please hold on with me. if you are like, I already know this stuff. I am going to, in at parts during my presentation, put up a little slide that says like practice or exercises to try. So again, there's something for everyone here. Whether you are just starting out or you have been a photographer for years and you're a Lensbaby expert, there's something for you here because there are ways to see light and experience light differently. And I'm going to try to encourage you in that direction. So, what makes photography a strange invention is that its primary raw materials, the basics of photography, are light and time. And so today we are going to talk about the light piece, but there's also a time element with what we do with our camera. So we're going to start out talking about these basics, which are of how our camera responds to light. So ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. That you might have heard like the exposure triangle. That's what we're getting at here. Okay, so ISO. Typically, that's the first thing that I set when I go out to shoot. But it is basically how sensitive your camera is to light. In bright situations, you want a low ISO, dark situations, high ISO, but you do need to know your camera. There are some points in high ISO where in low light situations, high ISO, that you may get some grain. Now, the cameras are getting better and better, but there is still that risk. So just beware. And if you underexpose or make your image dark and then try to lighten it later, you may really start seeing the grain. So just be aware of that. Um, these two images were taken at basically the same time of day, in the middle of the afternoon. And you can see how this was a bright sunny day, really barely any clouds, the light reflecting off the water. So I needed to use a super low ISO, 125. The day before that, these are taken in Nova Scotia on a family vacation. Super cloudy. We were not over the water. We were on rocks. The clouds were pretty dark. And so I had to use an ISO of 640 there. Probably could have gone even up from that. Okay, so I told you I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these basics, but they are important to talk about. So, aperture or the f-stop, it's how much light the camera is letting in. So you think of it, like this. So the high f-stop is most of the scene is going to be in focus. So like f22, f16. That is this top picture. We were in a hotel in Kentucky looking over the water, the river, and looking into Ohio. And the sunset I caught with a high ISO. So you can see like the buildings, the water, and even the background are pretty much everything is in focus. And then you can get a cool sun stream, sun burst kind of vibe with that. The next morning, I had my Soul 45 out and it has a fixed f-stop. And so it's a low f3.5, I think. But you can see how there's a lot more blur. The sun is kind of in like a blurry, hazy thing. And this is just this small piece is in focus. So when you use a low f-stop or wide open, you're going to have less of the scene in focus, and it will really set your subject apart. So, and you might get some bokeh, and you'll see that in the next slide. So here, this is a landscape, obviously. Got the sunburst. This is with one of the edge lenses, and it's probably, I think it's the edge 50, and it's probably at, the highest it goes. And you can see how much of the scene is in focus. All of those mountains are in focus. Here, a close-up image, basically only this little flower is in focus, and you can see all the bokeh with a wide aperture. A low aperture is probably f2, I'm guessing. The part of the triangle is the shutter speed. It's how fast the shutter opens and closes. And you have to think about, do I want time to freeze? There's the element of time. Do I want to really stop the motion or do I want this feeling of movement in my images? This is a sunset, and it's actually one of the cool things is you don't have to have like this perfect setting when you use a slow shutter speed with movement, because you're going for more like abstract look. So this was taken in a parking lot of my neighborhood high school, and I just moved the camera while the shutter was open to get that painterly vibe. This one was taken outside my back door during a thunderstorm. Well, inside my back door. My back door was open and it was storming outside. And this is actually a double exposure of tulips. And I moved as I was taking them. So it almost feels like they're blowing in the wind. Here's an example of the same scene, but using different shutter speeds. The first one, you can see how the droplets are almost, frozen in time there. And here you can really feel the motion when the shutter speed is a lot slower. Okay, so here are your exercises to practice. You may want to screenshot this unless you feel like going back and visiting this, which we obviously highly encourage as well. But you may want to screenshot this if you want to do some creative practice. Some ideas. Take one subject with the same angle and the same lighting and change elements of the exposure triangle. So change your ISO. And as you change your ISO, think, okay, well, how am I going to adjust the other elements here to make sure that it's exposed correctly? Try a super wide aperture and then a narrow one, and examine or really reflect. And these exercises involve reflection. They involve looking back. They involve putting the images side by side and seeing, how did my story change when I changed the aperture in this? Another thing you can change, obviously, is the shutter speed. If you want to freeze the moment in time, you use a high shutter speed. But now, then, try a low shutter speed and add a little bit of movement and see what the different vibe you're getting by doing that. Now, noting that if you change your shutter speed, you're going to have to change these other two things, because if you are going slower, it's going to let in a lot more light. So just if you start to get frustrated and like, why is this not exposed correctly? Just go take a step back and change the other two to adjust. Okay, now we're going to talk about some types of light. Backlight is one of my favorites. I think for the drama, the drama of it, but is when you're shooting straight into the light source. So you can do silhouettes with this. I don't have an actual silhouette here as an example. But basically, you can't really see the details of these trees, but you can see their shapes, and that's the idea behind a silhouette. Also, you can create some super cool lens flare, especially with Lensbaby, guys. The Lensbaby's lens flare is just unmatched. So you can see I was shooting straight into the sun. The sun was up here, and you just get this awesome rainbow flare going on surrounding my subject. You do have to move a little bit to get that vibe, but it can be super cool. Another type of light is direct light. So that's like turn yourself on a 180 and you're shooting. You and the light are going in the same direction. So the light is behind you and you are shooting towards it. Whoops, I almost dropped my camera off. What happens there is that it will illuminate things and then make the backgrounds like pretty dark, as you can see it in these, which adds this element of drama, but also adds some mystery. Like, I wonder what's happening back here. I can see like hints of flowers, or I can see hints of stems. See hints of the greenery, but I don't exactly know. So it can create this element of engaging your viewer in what else is there while enhancing, the colors and the vibrance of the image. Side light is another one that's super fun and creates a lot of cool shadows. Obviously, the light was coming from here on this tulip bud, and you can see how when the light comes from the side, half of it is left in the dark. And so that darkness again gives some depth to your image. Diffuse light, thinking like cloudy day, thinking um, maybe window light through a window. This image actually was taken in a greenhouse. So the you will see the colors might be a little more muted. There is a little less drama, but can add this rich softness to your image. And so it is definitely a type of light that is worth embracing and using in your storytelling. I love the mood of this one. All right, so I'm going to get into some comparisons, and with people sometimes it's easier to tell the story, and so I wanted to do that with this. This is my niece. She received a heart transplant when she was a baby, and she wanted to do a photo shoot to celebrate 15 years of having a new heart. And one of her favorite places on earth is Gettysburg Battlefield in Pennsylvania, and which happens to be like, I don't know, 25 minutes from where I live. And this was done in the winter, and most of the session, the light was like this. So it was, you can see there's not much color because it was a winter time, but it like all this muted, and she loves her red lipstick, so that really popped, and it was breezy. So here we are, you can see this like this is the diffused light vibe. And then, right at the end of our session, the sun broke through these clouds. So here you can see the direct light on her face, and you can see just how hopeful. I mean, to me, this screams like I'm so glad I'm alive, like and a sense of hope and just rejoicing. And then I turned her around and got the backlight here. This is with the Twist 60, and it gives this a little bit of sense of mystery, but also this sense of like confidence in I'm headed toward the light. So I don't know what these images say to you, but they express her story vividly to me, and they just are an example of how you can use the light that's there to enhance in your story in really powerful ways. Just a couple like comparisons. I took both of these images at the same time. This one I took from above, and you can see how the bright sun is just shining, and how so that's that direct light, and then you can see just all of these shadows. You don't really know what's going on underneath these cute little black-eyed Susans that are connected with one another, but you know there's something going on underneath. Whereas this one's more backlight, you can see all the bokeh going on. And the sun was not as bright at this moment. So you can see, I mean, here's a little bit of sunlight bouncing, but it wasn't quite as strong. So just a comparison of what two drastically different images can happen at like the same shoot just by moving a little bit. Here's an example with the Omni. Excuse me a second. This one, side light, I used the Lensbaby Omni Quilted Films over here on the left. And you can see how it's just like a subtle pops of color. If I didn't have the Omni, it would be probably just greenish brown. And then here is backlight. So I was shooting into the light, and you can see how the Omni caught a hold of the sunlight, and it's reflecting. And so two, again, completely, to me, completely different moods, and yet the same time period telling two different stories. All right, so here are your exercises. This is the time to screenshot if you can. But you take one subject, just like I did in those last examples, and you move the subject or the light to achieve these scenarios. So you're going to use direct light, where it's directly on your subject and you are shooting in the same direction that the light's coming from. Try some side light, like the tulip, and pay attention to where the shadows are. And then try some backlight. Shoot into the light source as it's coming from behind the subject, and see if you have a Lensbaby, see if you can get any of that fun flare. Okay. Temperature of light. Temperature of light really does impact the story that you're telling and what kind of vibe or emotion comes out of it. Just a couple examples. Um, there, here you can see this is this warm, glowy, kind of hazy summer light that in the left image versus this cool light. This was again in Nova Scotia, and it was again a super cloudy afternoon, and I still caught, some cool textured bokeh, but at the same time, the cool light gives a different kind of feel. There's also obviously monochrome. You can shoot in monochrome or you can do this in post-processing. I find that using monochrome often enhances the details. It pulls out, like you can see how the raindrops on the leaves are really, the details are really pulled out there. It can remove some distracting color elements. This is my bathroom. And some of the colors here are kind of they would pull away from this image for sure. They also get black and white by taking the color element out can also give this contemplative mood. So just consider that if you're opting for monochrome. Okay, now to how you can control the light. So a good photograph is knowing where to stand. So these are the things that I'd like to talk about: knowing your gear, positioning, shadows, adding light in camera, and a little bit of post-processing. Know your gear. So Michael talked a little bit at the beginning of this webinar about how Lensbaby can sometimes present a challenge if you're just getting it out of the box. You're like, how can I make this do what I want it to do? How can I figure out what this lens, what this optic, what this Omni is capable of? What is its capacity? Well, put it on your camera and practice a lot, but also do all the other things that I talked about in this presentation. Check it out in different types of light. Check it out with different apertures. And see what it can do. Understand how if you're changing a lens or you're changing an optic, how it's going to change the vibe of your photo. I love the velvet. Well, you can tell I love the lens flare on these, but this is a velvet lens flare. So it's more like streamy with this like semicircle thing. This is an edge lens flare, right? So you get almost like this circular oblong type of lens flare. Both amazing, both I love. You can see in this picture, the sun is actually in the image, whereas this one, the sun is just out. This is not cropped. The sun is just outside the image, and I was able to grab the flare that was coming into the lens without actually having the sun in the picture. Again, know your gear, explore your gear. Um, Here's an example of these images were taken both in my backyard, both of the same type of subject, dahlias, but what a different vibe you get. This one taken with the new Lensbaby Twist 28, taken shot into a tree that was changing colors and knowing that I was going to get this awesome twist bokeh in the background. This one taken with the Lensbaby Double Glass 2, and you can see how it gets like a streamy type of not. You can see the oval bokeh, but you also get this like streamy lens flare. What a difference in these two images, and you'll see that in the next one as well, just by changing the gear. These two images were taken of the same tree. Um, and about the same lighting. This had a little more sunlight in it, but using the Lensbaby Double Glass 2, I didn't have macro on this at this time. I was using the bird drop-in disc, and you can see what a difference this image is versus this bottom one. This is the Lensbaby Velvet 56. And you can see I did not shoot this one wide open. So you can see how many details of the droplets were pulled out in this one. Okay. Another way to change or shift your story is where you stand, where you are. And we talked a little bit about like moving yourself around the subject, but this was my kids at a reservoir in the wintertime. You can tell they have their hoods up. But my son obviously is wearing this awesome red hoodie and used that as my pop of color. And the sun is coming at him. So you can see how different that is when the sun is behind him. This is with the Soul 45. But what a different vibe these give just by where I was standing. So I just let him do his thing. That's what I tend to do with my kids. You do your thing, I'll do the moving. And that's a way that you can take control of your story. Another one thing I want to talk about a little bit as a story enhancer is utilization of shadows. I could have just taken a picture of these fun tulips in the sunlight or used backlight, which I did. And yet, by including their shadows, I feel like I gave like almost like an echo feel of there is more here kind of feel to this still life image. Here, obviously, this is a picture of my daughter, and instead of focusing on her, I focused on her shadow and the shape that her arms were making in relationship to the tree. And what a cool story, the shadows, letting the shadows tell a story instead of the actual subject telling the story. Okay, so here I'm going to talk a little bit about how you can add light in camera. And you're not actually adding light, but you're definitely reflecting light in different ways so that you can create this feel. So these are both using the Lensbaby Omni quilted films, which are one of my favorites. I'll hold them up, but I am going to show you how I use them in just a second. And you can use them to cover part of your lens, or this one I shot the entire way through, shooting into the light was over here, but capturing, so it gave it almost a vintage vibe by shooting the whole way through it. So here are some examples of what Lensbaby Omni is. If you don't know what it is, check it out on the website, but also here are some examples. You can see how it would catch light in a fun way, right? This is a crystal, which I'll show you in a minute. These are the quilted films, and this is from the Lensbaby Neon set, which is also still on sale. And just to give you an example of the difference that Omni can make. Actually, I love both of these images, so I'm not going to pick a favorite, but I am going to just say, here's the image I took at first. This lovely orange bending over flower. But I was like, you know what? I wonder if I could add some like orange fun light in camera. And so that's exactly what I did. And they tell to me two very different stories, each beautiful story, each an emotive story, but a different story. So you have to decide. What story do you want to tell? What is your story in this moment? And perhaps I would share these on different days with different words behind them, and talk about the different feels for them. Obviously, you can change the light, shift the light, enhance the light in post-processing. I love to do a lot of my art in camera. I have said it before. I'm going to say it again. I'm not a Photoshop girl. Okay. It probably has been maybe 6 months since I opened Photoshop. Lightroom is where I do my editing. And so I'm just going to show you how you can add a little bit of light or change the light in post-processing. These images were taken right after one another, just slightly different angles. But I edited this one, obviously. I'm going to show you how I did that. So if you use Lightroom, again, you can use many different programs to do this. If you're a Photoshop person, I'm sure you can do it in there too. But this is my Lightroom, and this is using the masking module. And I couldn't show all the steps, but I'm using a linear gradient. And I took the linear gradient and I started at the top and I pulled it down. So that all that red stuff is just showing me the area of the image that is being affected. And then you can see here what I did. I slid up the exposure, slid up the contrast, pulled down the highlights a little bit, and you can see what I did with the temperature. I wanted a golden light in this one. So I made it golden by shifting the temperature. So you can do it in post-processing. It is an option, and sometimes I do that. Not always, but sometimes. Just really quickly, well, actually, I'm going to back up. I'm going to stop screen sharing for just a second, and I'm going to show you how I use the Omni. Okay, can we see this? Okay, can you see, guys, see me? Currently, I have the Twist 60 on here. I have one macro, little macro filter on there. And how I use this is I'm gonna actually do it in real time so I can show you exactly how I do it. And I'm gonna try to turn it this way and then I'll maybe turn it this way too. But I usually hold it like this. And obviously I'm gonna have to move my arm around, but I'll show you from the left side so I don't block it too much. And then I just move it in front of the lens until it catches the light where I want it, and then I snap, right? I'll do it from this way too. So I move it in front of the lens. Oh, there's some green little bokeh things. So just kind of do it that way. You can also this is one of the, you can see the light just like bouncing off that crystal. And I do kind of the same thing, just twist it in front, hold it up in front. Ooh, there's some cool stuff. Mess around with it, put it up at the top. Ooh, I just got some fun little, and this is called play. This is called experimenting. This is called creative freedom. And that's one of the awesome things about Lensbaby. And I think that's probably one of the reasons you're here is because there is creative freedom in Lensbaby. So that's how I use those. From the Omni Neon, these you can stack them so they can create a different color. But I often, if I'm shooting into the light, I'll hold them at the top like this, and it'll get this super fun sun flare. And I even did one where I just took a picture of the sun flare with this, and then I double exposed it. It's in one of my recent posts on Instagram if you check it out. Double exposed it with a flower. So it's like this sun flare hazy over the flower. It turned out pretty cool. So anyway, that was the hopeful vibe I was going for at that moment. So yes, that is how I use these. And if you have questions, feel free to shoot them over to me. I love to give like video demo questions in response. So if I can, I will. So back to the presentation. Just a second, sharing, as I'm almost done here. Um, I I'm not going to go into using alternative light sources. Many people use flash, studio photography. You can, I mean, the possibilities are endless. I've shot with my iPad, using my iPad as a flashlight before. So really, any light is good light, any light you can use. But I just want to think about where your alternative light sources, besides the sun, might be, and how they are impacting the shadows, especially if they're right overhead. They're going to create some like serious shadows this away. And you may be able to work with it and love it. Also, sometimes the temperature is a little wonky on alternative light. It could be fluorescent-y, or it can be super yellow. So you just have to consider that, and then work with it to tell the story you want to. Okay, here are your exercises for this portion. So you may want to screenshot this. Try adding light, adding color, adding bokeh into your images, using prisms, using the Lensbaby Omni, like I showed you, gave it examples. You can try using artificial light. Try using different angles. I mean, I could even use my ring light to illuminate a photograph. So really pay attention though to the temperature of the light, and whether you are going to work with that or change it in post processing. And I do encourage you to move your body to light. You want try to have your light on your subject the way you like it, and then move your body. And however you move your body, change the story. You could get from up from above, you can go from below, shoot at an angle from the side directly into the sun. Try some different ways to move your body if you're able. Okay, so here's that's the summation of my presentation this evening. This is where you can find me. This is who I am. Always honored to connect with you. So feel free to send me some questions. And I have not been looking at the chat or the Q&A during this whole presentation. So I'm going to stop the sharing. Yeah, there's 17 new things. Okay.
Amazing. So first and foremost, guys, just quickly in the chat, give it up for Liz. That was amazing. There was so much
Okay.
goodness in there, and I think that as we're learning, and I just want to kind of tag team what you said. So much of this is like go out here and experiment.
Yeah.
The thing that is so incredible about Lensbaby, in my opinion, and what we get to do and what we've created over all of these amazing years is a place for you to go, I like this, I don't like this, let me try this, let me try that, and kind of make it your own. Right. And I think that's really powerful. Guys, so one thing in the chat, if you ask questions, we're going to lose those. Make sure you put your questions in the Q&A. YouTube friends, I see a handful of you guys over there with some questions in the chat too. We'll make sure to get to those. And so I will go through and grab a couple here. I'm surprised you finished so early, Liz. I don't think that's ever happened before. So,
I know.
um, so guys, if you have questions, please drop those in here. A couple housekeeping questions I'm just going to answer real quick while people are typing their questions into the Q&A. Guys, again, this is being recorded. It is currently live on our YouTube. It will still be there as soon as we're done. So if you missed it at the beginning and you're just popping in, it is on our YouTube. We will be sharing it on all of the places shortly. I had a couple people message me and asked about the special gift card we're doing for attendees tonight. So I'll put that in the chat for you again. But here's the deal. We're doing something super special. As you know, we have the Lensbaby summer sale happening right now. It's one of our biggest sales of the entire year. And the way that it works, if you go to lensbaby.com, you can use the code SUMMER, like right now, and the number 30, summer 30. I'm going to toss this in the chat for you guys right now, just so you have it. Use summer 30 when you check out, and that's good for $30 off. And that includes what's ever on sale already. So what's amazing, you could literally get $30 off of like a velvet, which is already tremendously on sale. That's
Yeah.
only for you guys, by the way. And tomorrow morning, that will not work. So if you're like, I've been on the fence about something Lensbaby, you may want to consider it. You're all adults here. Do whatever you want, but something to think about. That said, let's jump into some questions here.
Yeah. Um,
Where shall we start? Right here. Yes, go ahead. Was there something you wanted to
Yeah,
address
no,
first?
I'm gonna have to do a whole thing on the Christmas lights. I can't answer that like succinctly. So it's a whole process I use, and I use Lensbaby. So for the Christmas light people, I'm gonna have to revisit that and check my Instagram for that. I do shoot with a Canon R6 Mark II. The colored pieces that I showed these guys, these are the Omni quilted films, and they're in one of the packs, the rainbow pack, right? Rainbow
Yes.
Pack, Michael? Okay, these
Mhm.
are in the Rainbow Pack Omni on their website. That image of the wheat and grass that you're talking about was taken with a double glass too. Um, and it is actually a double exposure, but the double glass 2 has these drop-in discs. If you've never experienced that lens, it's so cool. And they create that awesome textury bokeh that almost looks like a painting. It's really rich. So that's what I did. I used the double glass 2 and a double exposure to create that vibe. Um,
I love that. Let me
yeah,
mention something on that too, because
yeah.
one of the really cool things, I mean, now obviously you can create double exposures like in camera with so many cameras, which is amazing. But what you can't do is what Lensbaby allows you to do. And I think a lot of people go into post processing and they try to make it look like this vision. And I think one of the cool things, especially about your work, is like you get to see that vision in Liz's work like as soon as she takes the photo. Like I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because I've been around you long enough. I think I can assume like you already have an idea of what you want this to look like when you're pressing the shutter release, as
Hmm.
opposed to I'm going to go into and build out this whole thing in Photoshop. Is that, do you
Never.
feel like that's true or not?
Oh yeah. If I'm taking the picture, that's what it's gonna be. Now, somebody said, do I use the Omni in a double exposure? Only very, very rarely. Like you see those images that I shared with the Omni, they are single exposures. Unless I told you that they aren't, they are single exposure. So I do it just as I showed you, just as I showed you, just like this. That's what I'm doing. Single exposure. Omni creates all that fun stuff. And I just take the one shot. And again, like Michael said, I'm not doing this in post processing. I don't even know how to do it in post processing, and I don't want to spend my time doing that. I want to spend my time experiencing and creating in person, and that's what Lensbaby lets me do. There is a question about when you have so much gear, how do you know what you want to take with, like
Hmm.
what don't you take with you?
That's a
I
great
don't. I
question.
don't take it with me. I'm like, okay, today I'm just going to take a velvet and a double glass tube because I know they give me completely different vibes, right? Or today I'm going to take the Twist 28 and then like a macro lens, or I'll take two twists. I'll take the twist 28 and the twist 60. I currently am on a journey where I'm only shooting with one lens the whole week. So
Hmm.
obviously the lens of the week is the twist 60. And so
I love that.
um, I'm making myself create vision with the lens that I have on my camera. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, let me tag team that real quick because we have
Yeah,
a
yeah,
couple minutes before we jump on with Kathy in
yeah.
about 10 minutes, guys. So we're gonna just jam with you all. Um, what one of the things is I love this idea of like this is the lens for the week.
Hmm.
People will I've been around long enough. I've been in this company as a partner for a decade. I've seen everyone and had every experience that people ever have. And even I've had those experiences too. I got my first Lensbaby from Robert's Camera. Shout out to my friend John Scott at the beginning of my photography career 16 years ago. Okay. And it was a Spark, and I threw that thing in the bag and I was like, nope, I'm not touching. It's chaos, right? I'm like, what do I do with this? Fast forward, I moved to Portland, Oregon. I'm walking around the neighborhood and I'm like, oh, that's that Lensbaby place. And I sort of got this God's honest truth. I go, oh, it's still around. And fast forward all these years later, I've now shot with and used every single product we've ever had. And the one thing that I can tell you is that there's something true about sitting in the difficulty of learning the tool. And it's something very much like anything that we do in life. In the beginning, we're like, I'm going to learn how to ride a bicycle. And it's like, good luck. And you crash and burn a couple of times, and then one day you get it. And first you're okay, and then you're good, and then you're great, and then you're proficient, and then you're a master, right? I look at the work that Liz and Kathy do, and they may not say this because they're very humble, but they're masters of Lensbaby photography because they've put in the hours. So for those of you who are like, man, I get so overwhelmed with Lensbaby, take what you have, or if you're buying something for the very first time, learn it, like learn it. And the thing is, if you do that, you will become a better photographer. So I just wanted to tag team on that because I love the fact that you are using one lens for a week and you're pushing yourself into that. Let me just answer a couple more questions here real
Hmm.
quick, about, because people are asking about the discount code. So again, if you guys go use the code summer and the number 30 at checkout on lensbaby.com, it's $30 off anything that you order across the board. I will tell you, It does not work on Twist 28 or our PL lenses. PLs are just a kind of mount. Those are high-end cinema lenses that we do. And then you have to spend a minimum of 100 bucks. So if you do that, you get 30 bucks off. And again, everything is off sale, on sale right now. There was one question because you're not in YouTube, Liz. I want to read you a couple questions
Yeah.
to our amazing, faithful YouTube people who couldn't get in the Zoom. So you guys are
Yeah,
not
thank you
being
for being here.
ignored. Michelle wants to know, do you actually use Omni rings or are you just holding the Omni filters?
That's a brilliant question. I actually was thinking about this today. I use the Omni rings in a very, very, very rarely, like less than 1% of the time. I am holding them
Mm.
because I love the control I can get. I love, especially with the films, how you can bend them and, like curl them up and, do them different ways. So I might be like, I do like control. So, over my gear, over my stuff. So I do like it. Now, if you want to get the vibe where you're doing crystal on crystal, where you don't have enough hands, yes, I would definitely use the rings. If I'm doing a self-portrait, which I do like once a month, but don't always use Omni for it, I obviously would use the rings. So there are circumstances, select circumstances where I would use those rings. And I have used the rings, but mostly it's just like I have a little baggie in my camera bag. It's so, it's so high tech. This little baggie, and I just put these in there and I just grab it out and I can shoot just like that. So it's like I can be really spontaneous with it. Versus the rings, you have to like plan a little bit more. So
Love that.
that's that. Somebody did, and I've heard seeing questions like two places about like how do you know what Lensbaby lenses do? And
Mm.
to your point, Michael, you got to practice with them. But if you're trying to buy one, if you go to my Instagram page and Kathy's Instagram page, or basically any of the ambassadors, I label every single image with what I took it with. So you will know this one was velvet. Like you're like, oh, I like that vibe. Oh, she took it with a double glass too, or so or that was a sweet lens. Or so if you like any of my images and then you just like go down, it'll say exactly what it was shot with. Even sometimes which Omni I used, whether I use macro filters, usually is on there. I'm using macro filters or macro extension. Lensbaby's website's also a good place because if you click on Velvet, you'll get a whole bunch of pictures of people who have shot with a Velvet. So that's how without actually having it in your hand. Also, if you're like toss up between two, message me and I'll try to help you.
And one of the things I'll add too is, I mean, we have, I can tell you right now on our YouTube channel alone, we have, I'm gonna let's open it in a new screen. I can tell you how many we have. We have 596 videos. Okay. We
Right.
have probably just webinars. I bet Liz, you and I have probably done 10 hours of webinars together over the
Probably.
years. Right. And so
Yeah.
there's tons. One of the things that when I came into the company 10 years ago, because I was a confused consumer, I was like, guys, we're making education our number one thing. So you got to go learn. However, what I would say too, an easy way to kind of figure it out is like what draws your eye. For some people, it's going to be a spark. Some people, it's going to be edge. Some people, it's going to be velvet. Go and look at everything on the site. And again, now since it's such a good time and you have this discount code that we're using, experiment with something. And we have awesome return policies and a great customer service team, and everybody on here is going to help. So, take a risk, see what you like. A couple other questions I just want to address because we
Hmm.
only have a few minutes left.
Yeah.
Someone asked, Liz, how do you decide which lens baby to use for a specific circumstance?
Well, I mean, that goes back to what you were saying, Michael. Like, what kind of knowing what they are capable of. Like, for example, that picture that I took of the flowering tree with the little droplets. I saw those little droplets. I observed it first, and I'm like, that's a velvet. I want the velvet for that. Because I knew it could get that
Hmm.
rich detail with also giving me kind of like a vintagey soft vibe. So that's how I decide. But at this current moment, like I was saying to Michael, and explaining, I'm trying to shoot my vision with whatever's on my camera. at the moment. So either I adapt myself, I adapt my technique, I adapt the light that I'm using, I adapt my angles, apertures. But sometimes I do just know like the edge is going to give me that like perspective vibe that I really want. The sweets are going to give me this like bokeh that I'm really loving at that moment. So that's how I decide. It's not very not very, like methodical exactly, but that's the creative that's how you just let yourself be creative. Let your
Yeah,
creativity flow.
I love that. And I think too, like once you get deeper into the ecosystem, one day you're like, your eyes, I don't know if this was true for you, but I eventually got to this place where I was like, oh, that's an edge photo.
Yeah.
That's a velvet photo. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
wouldn't even cross my mind. It would just be like, that's the perp. It's like if you have a toolkit, you know what tool goes to what thing. That's kind of how I see this
Yeah.
now. Couple questions just because I want to hit this real quick. We had do we have lens that fit micro four thirds? Absolutely. Go to lensbaby.com. And how do I know if these lenses will fit my camera? It probably will. All you do is if you go to lensbaby.com, there is a drop down that shows all of the cameras. We base our lenses off of mounts, not on cameras. So if you have the mount, which you probably do, you'll be good to go because we have DSLR and mirrorless. There was one other question that I wanted
Yeah.
to answer, have you answer here.
Yeah.
Um, because I think it's actually kind of fitting. It's actually two parts. Someone asked, which lens gives you cool bokeh? And then what is a good lens to begin with?
These are like awesome awesome questions. I'll tell you the one that I began with was the Velvet 56. I did have a sweet 35, but that one's a little for me tougher to begin with. So you're talking begin because you can get super sharp photos with the Velvet, and as you open the aperture more and more, it gets more dreamier and more creamier and so you can still get some super creative effects with the Velvet series. I actually am bordering on liking the 85 a little bit better at this current second, but anyhow, one of the Velvets is a good one to start with, especially if you want to get some close up, but also like the pulled back. It does both. What was oh cool bokeh? Like it depends what kind of bokeh you like. The Velvet if gives these like almost looks like octagonal, is that a word? Bokeh, and that's really pretty. If you're but again, bokeh comes through shooting through filtered through shooting into light through filtered stuff. So you have to have that set up. You may already know that, but anyway, um, and the double glass too really has some fun, some super fun bokeh because you can put so many different drop-in discs in there, and you can get like one of them's like this, like V, like this. One of them's the bird. You saw that. One of them is a swirl. There are stars, like so you can get all different types if you're looking for different types of bokeh with the double glass too. And yes, that does fit in the Composer Pro too. I don't know. Somebody was asking about the optics, Michael, and I don't know. I didn't get that question, the whole
I don't know. We
question.
they got
But
buried in there.
yeah,
Um,
so sorry about that, about
No
the
worries. And
optics.
and and
But
guys, just keep posting your questions here in the Q&A. We've got to move on to our next amazing
yeah,
speaker. But before we do, guys, just one more time, please, in the chat, if you will give it up for the amazing Liz Wilson, that is with two L's.
who else?
Make sure
Thank you,
that you go
everybody.
follow her on social media, hit her up with anything, throw in those fire emojis, chats, hands, claps, give it up for such an amazing, amazing presentation. And because it's summer, and because we're rocking and rolling, we're going to jump right in here to our next incredible speaker. And Kathy Kuhlman is one of those people who anytime I have been like, man, I need massive inspiration, I know who to call. It's going to be Kathy. So I'm going to give it over to you. You're muted. You'll have to unmute yourself. And guys, you're going to want to pay attention, grab a notebook because you're going to walk away getting taken to school on a Thursday night. So, Kathy, thank you for being here, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me tonight, Michael. I am really happy to be here. And I want to welcome you all. I'm so glad that you are joining us tonight. I want to talk a little bit tonight about the art of seeing. And this may seem a little bit simplistic in the beginning. And like Liz said, I kind of want you to hang in there with me for a little bit because we don't all see things the same way. Learning to see differently is vital. It changes your reality without changing your circumstances. Learning to see with Lensbaby um, changes your reality. It truly, truly does. When I first picked up a Lensbaby, it wasn't too soon after I had picked up a camera. And I was probably still struggling a little bit with the exposure triangle. And I had bought off of somebody that I knew. I bought the Composer Pro and the original double glass optic. There wasn't a lot of support in my circle of photography friends that I lived around and went to classes with and met up with for this lens. And it kind of quickly became relegated to a drawer. But a few years later, I took a macro class by another wonderful person who was also now a Lensbaby ambassador and has been for many years. And she used the Velvet 56. And that really turned my head. I didn't have a Velvet 56 when I started that class, but by the time I finished the class, I might have just gone ahead and sprung for and bought that lens. I wanted to see differently. I was loving the images that were coming through other people, not just Tiffany, but the other people in the class. And it really inspired me to try something different. But I also realized at the same time that when I was out with people, I wasn't always seeing the scene the way they saw it, or they saw things that I totally, totally missed. So I had to kind of take a step back and think about what it was that I was doing. And I don't want to say wrong, but what I could maybe do better in order to get images that I was really proud of and that I really wanted to share online. And that took some work. So let's get started. Let's walk through the door. I know, kind of a bit of corny, a bit of a corny cliche, but let's go. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Now, it's interesting that I put this one picture here first, because this is probably the one picture that I'm going to show in this whole series that I took into Photoshop. And I know Liz just talked a little bit about how she rarely ever uses Photoshop, and I rarely ever use Photoshop. This landscape picture was also taken with the Velvet 85. And interestingly enough, like they were just talking about what images work with what lens. And while, yes, you know, the velvets are great for macro and the edges I kind of feel like are great for street photography, I just took a landscape with the Velvet 85. But I had just been shooting flowers. I was at Longwood Gardens, a local horticultural place, and I had finished with some macro flowers, and I was just kind of taking a walk down around to see what I could find. And I happened to see these two trees. Also in the back of my mind was a creative photography class that I was taking at the time. And one of the things that we were working on was ICM, or intentional camera movement. I saw these trees and I was able to get kind of both of them in my image. Now it was spring. These trees were green. You know, there was no yellow in my image. The grass was green. You know, I did have some brown in the trunks and the branches of the trees. And it was one of those images when I took it and I looked at it and I said, okay, you know, like there's not really much here. But when I got home and downloaded everything onto my computer, this was an image that just kind of grabbed my attention. And I used one of the techniques that I was learning about in the class, and I multiplied the exposures in Photoshop and just played with blend modes. And I got this kind of really cool image, and it just stuck with me. So I kind of broke my own rule, and this was only a year ago, and I've been shooting with Lensbaby for 6, 8 years at least now. So I can look at things differently, and I can make things change. Your camera changes a three-dimensional world into a two-dimensional picture. But one of the things I truly love about some Lensbaby images that I see, and many probably Lensbaby images that I see, is I feel like I can reach out and touch these lenses or these pictures. Like I can feel the silkiness in this flower, or sometimes there's a landscape, and especially if I am surfing the net, I might see somebody's landscape and I just feel like I could almost walk into it. The depth and the emotion that I feel, I could sit myself right inside the vision that somebody else had, or maybe it was my vision. So we're going to talk about ways to see these things as we get further into my presentation. But before we get to that, I want you to think about how you see things. We as human beings tend to learn in three different ways. We either learn visually, we learn by sound, or we learn by touch, tactile. But I think we see things in more ways than that. Obviously, we see things visually. We are drawn to things we see if we hear something. We can see textures in things. We also see emotionally. You know, you get drawn into an image or a landscape, or you're at the beach, or you're sitting by a lake, and you just feel the emotion of whatever it is. Sit me on any beach and I'm a happy camper. Also, we see things sometimes with a sixth sense, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in the next slide or two. People who notice more than just the big things tend to be people who see the small changes. And I'm not just talking about physical changes, but people who see the small things see the changes in energy level or the changes in tone. They see changes in patterns, behavior patterns, patterns of events, patterns in actions, not just physical patterns and checkerboard patterns, or, you know, there's a square, and now we have a circle. These people tend to feel things before they can put it into words. So again, going back to that sixth sense, I can remember many, many years ago when I was a kid, my parents let me walk around the block to visit a friend. And that was huge. You know, like most parents today, you know, don't let a 5-year-old go walking around town. But back then we could do that. And as I was walking home, and I was only about 3 houses away from where I lived, I just got this overwhelming feeling that there was going to be a dog around the corner, around a tree or somewhere. And sure enough, as I got up to the next house, out came this dog. And I was petrified of dogs. We didn't have a dog. I didn't know anything about dogs. My mother didn't like dogs. So I had a fear, not from anything that had happened, but just because it kind of was the way I was raised. But I knew that dog was there. I don't know how I knew it was there, but I knew it was there. Sometimes this happens to me when I'm getting ready to shoot an image. When I go someplace I haven't been before, I'm just drawn to an area where I want to go shoot. So think about if anything like that has ever happened to you before. It might help you see where it is you want to go, or something maybe that you want to do. People who see the small things tend to replay conversations over in their mind. They like to analyze things at a deeper level. And this is something that I actually bring into my photography, but because of something I learned when I was working in special education. I retired a few years ago, but Part of our training was to look at a behavior of a student. And then once we got past it or through it, to go back afterwards. And we had to kind of come up with the ABCs. What was the antecedent to the behavior? What was the actual behavior? And what was the consequence to the behavior? And the antecedent could have been something about we put work in front of a student that they didn't want to do. It could have been somebody took something from the student. It could have been mom put something in their lunch that they didn't want. It could have been it was too hot, or it was too cold, or it was too light, or it was too dark. We had to figure out what all was present before the behavior. And then we had to look at the consequence. We can do those same things when we're shooting. We can look at the light. We can look at the area around the subject. We can look at all that. We take the picture, and then many of us chimp. We look at the back of the camera and say, did I overexpose this? Did I underexpose this? Did I leave something in the frame that maybe I could remove from the frame if I took a little bit of steps to the right, or a little bit of steps to the, the left, or I shot a little higher, shot a little lower? I tend to be one of those people who want to get it right in camera. So I'll do that. It's much quicker for me to take one more picture than it is to go home and figure out how to take care of all those problems in Photoshop. People who notice more than the big things tend to be bored by ordinary topics. Okay, they want deeper, they want more. Many times, the people that maybe you're with are surprised that you saw that. Have you ever been with a group of people and then look at their images later and wonder, where were they standing when they got that because you didn't see it? I know it's happened to me frequently. So it makes me want to slow down and spend more time exploring a little bit. And people who notice the small things tend to be people who can read between the lines. Okay, they're not just looking for rules and what to follow. They're almost looking for how to break the rules or get in between those rules and explore in more depth. Artists, and many different kind of artists, tend to notice these things. So these things are things that you can think about as you're out shooting. Artists see the light, and Liz just did a whole presentation on seeing the light. We notice where the shadows fall. We notice the direction the light comes from. We notice what light bounces off of. We notice the color temperature of the light. Is it blue like an ocean? Or during blue hour? Is it warm like sun or fire? Or during golden hour? Artists notice space, not just the subject, but the negative space around the subject, and where within that space the subject is placed or should be placed. Artists notice the background, and this is really important for a photographer. What is behind the subject, and do you want to include it? I actually get somewhat lazy sometimes with this, and it just happened to me last week. I was in my garden. One of my roses was blooming beautifully, and I was so focused on getting focus on a certain spot on that rose that I forgot to pay attention to what was in my background. And behind my rose was my vegetable garden and my hoops that during the winter have frost cloth over them to prevent what's in there from freezing over the winter. So while I had this beautifully in focus rose, I had a terrible background because I totally forgot to look back there. Not a big deal because I can go back outside on another day and take that picture. But if I was somewhere else, I wouldn't have that chance to do that. So for me, it's just a reminder to slow down and think about that as I'm shooting. Artists tend to notice shapes sometimes more than things. Is it a tree or is it a rectangle with a triangle on top of it? And the one thing that artists do really well is understand the relationships of each of these things to each other. So if you are good at one or two of these things and maybe not good at others, think about it. Pick one at a time and go through the next time you're out shooting and try to focus on that a little bit more. How does all of this truly translate to your art and what it is you do with your photography? Are you somebody who tends to notice the tiny details in things? Okay. Sometimes it's just dead things. This image got rave reviews by people in my camera club. And I was like, it's just a dead thing. Like, I didn't think much of it, but I had a very shallow depth of field. I am about 99% sure I shot this one with my Velvet 56. So I got all of that dreamy blur behind it. But the top of this, I got a very, spiky, textury, image. Are you somebody who notices contrast in things? Do you notice the difference in the lights and the darks? Or do you notice movement? This second image is a carousel at a township festival, like a summer festival that they had. And I believe it was horses on it. So this was a longer exposure, and I had my camera on a tripod, which I almost never do. So you don't see the horses, but you see the light and the white and the color from them going past. But the center part of the carousel is static. So you see the lights and the darks. Is that what grabs your attention? Is that what makes you notice things? Are you somebody that notices the patterns? I don't like typically shooting things like, especially like flowers straight on. I like shooting the backs of flowers. I like laying down, shooting the underneath of the flowers. But in this image, you can tell I have enough in the top part of my composition to know what it is you're looking at. You know these are tulips, but it's sort of the pattern of the leaves and the stems coming up, going across. And in a wider image, it's even more dramatic. Do you notice sound? The sound of these bees is what grabbed my attention in my last image. They were on the cone flowers there. And I, again, had my Velvet 56 out. This is also where I learned you need to be very careful while you're reverse freelensing, because I took a step back and bumped into a step behind me and fell. And up popped my lens. And down went my hand. And I was fortunate enough that my lens fell in my lap and I didn't lose it. But all because the sound of this bee took my attention away. So I tend to learn many, many different ways, and some people do. So back to that beginning in the very first slide, or one of the first slides, when you learn via hearing or seeing or touching. Some people, are more prone to one. Some people learn across all three. I'm one of those three people. How does this translate to your art of storytelling and what it is you see? I am one of these people who tends to get inspired as I am shooting. I truly don't always have an idea of what I want my final image to look like before I start shooting. The image on the left here at the bottom is a lighthouse. I was in Michigan with some friends, and we had walked out onto this bulkhead. And I had two lenses with me. The rest of them I had left in the car. I had two very, very different lenses with me. I had my Tamron 150 to 600 because there were birds out here and I wanted to practice some bird photography. And I had my Sweet 22. I couldn't have had, I don't think, two more different lenses. And the 150 to 600 was on my camera when I was walking out. And this bulkhead was at least twice as long as this picture makes it look. and I was standing way back and probably at about 150, and I took a picture of the lighthouse. You know, it was a very documentary image. It was, to me, it was a lighthouse. I could say, oh yeah, I've been to that. What does that, lighthouse look like? Yeah, I've been there. See, I have proof. And then I went closer and closer and I tried shooting some birds. And by the time I got up close to the lighthouse, I was too close to use the 150 to 600. So I popped my Sweet 22 on and I walked back some. At this point, I think I was the only person left out of the 6 or 8 of us that were there that was still out on the bulkhead. But I loved this crop on this image, and that's truly all that I did with except for maybe bringing out a little bit of more detail in the sky because it was very overcast. But I loved what the Sweet 22 did here. Even though that you don't see most of the blur on the edges, I have leading lines coming from the 4 lines on the bulkhead itself. The edges of the bulkhead dropped off seriously. And then I have the lines coming in from my horizon. But this image told a really cool story of scale. I made this lighthouse look really, really tiny from this image. And it's probably one of the favorite images of a lighthouse that I've ever taken. In the next image, I was trying to tell a story of nobody being on the platform at the train station. I had several lenses with me this day, and I picked up my Edge 35. I really enjoy using that when I am shooting like street photography or in the city. And I was able to use that vertical slice of focus together with the lines. I have the lines of the track, I have the yellow warning stripe, and then like the sidewalk itself. And I focus down on the front of the train because obviously that's what I want people to notice. But as your eyes are going down there, you can't help notice that there's very few people. I have one man who came out very close to the front of my frame. I actually think he was one of the conductors. There was a little store tucked in there. And then 2 people kind of peeked out at the end. But my story here was nobody's on the train platform, but the train is waiting for the people to come. The next image is just that warm hug that I kind of feel like this tulip was getting, the last little hug it was getting from the surrounding leaves before it was able to bloom. The last image was an in-camera double exposure. And I know Liz talked about double exposures a bit. I used something that has been kind of nicknamed cross-hatching in this image. My first exposure was a vertical movement and my second exposure was a horizontal movement. So I created some expectation in this image just by doing that. And this has become a very favorite technique of mine when I'm in the woods or when I'm walking trails like this. And I also had this little area where the canopy over the trees kind of created this shadow. And this is one of those images for me that can kind of come with 2 feelings. Like, is this like a sense of adventure? I have some bright yellows, some bright greens. It was fall when I took this picture, so I definitely had a lot of golden light in there. And it was close to sunset. But that dark spot in the middle where the trail goes is a little bit foreboding. And I think about that a lot. Maybe that fear from the dog when I was a kid, like, do I really want to walk there? Because I don't know, maybe there's a dog. I love dogs now. Don't get me wrong. I love dogs now. But I think that I see these kinds of images all the time now. And I love using Lensbaby lenses for this. And one of the really neat things about this was also shot with an edge. But because I had a fair amount of light, I was able to close down on my aperture. And that gave me a lot of the detail that you still see in this image. So while this isn't, technically all, all of the the blur that you would typically get, and I don't have any horizontal or vertical slice of focus. What I have is a lens that is very versatile. So it allows me to do a lot of things, and I love having it on my lens or on my camera for that reason. Liz in her presentation talked a lot about like emotion in things. And this kind of image is what draws my emotion out when I'm shooting. If you put me at the beach, you could probably just leave me there forever. I absolutely love it. That is my zen and my peace. And for this landscape, I chose a Velvet 28, and more so because I wanted a wider image. Like, I love the expanse of the ocean. I love how it makes me feel small. My problems when I go sit there don't feel nearly as big to me when I'm sitting here looking at this vast thing. I think, how bad can this be? I can work this out, or we can work this out, whatever's happening. Also here is the color of light. So the blues of the sky, this was just after sunset. It was not one of those beautiful, gorgeous colors. They were very muted. There's a lot of clouds still in the sky. And the blue of the ocean just give this a very peaceful, very calming image. And I chose not to shoot straight on out into the ocean, but I chose to include the dunes and a little bits of the tops of the houses that you can see that sit back on the other side of the dunes, and then a big expanse of water. I cropped this a little bit in from the top. I didn't feel that the sky was adding much more to my image, and it didn't really need to be there. So again, that sort of helps widen that view. Let's talk about the art of energy. I started about 3 or 4 years ago using my Lensbabies to shoot fireworks. It is not something that I had ever done before, and I typically would have thrown like a 24 to 70 in my bag. And the very first time I did, I tried a Lensbaby. I put the 24 to 70 in there, and then I don't know what Lensbaby it was I used. But I came home with images that I actually liked. The township where I live actually does fireworks every year. I can walk down and walk back, and we're sitting fairly close to them, or at least I choose to sit fairly close to them. So last year I tried with the Sol 45. Every year I take one different Lensbaby with me just to see what it can do. These images are from myself. But I have to tell you, every year I have come home with several images that I truly, truly like. They're very fun. I don't really do much with them. I do post them on the township website for other people to see who might not have been able to get there. But, you know, you can create energy with these lenses as well. The art of movement. You can create or record movement many different ways with photography. I took this picture when I was beta testing the Sweet 22. Sweet 22 is really wide. It has the most bokeh of any Lensbaby lens out there. This was just a basket of Christmas ornaments, and I believe they were glass Christmas ornaments in a gift shop at Longwood Gardens. And the ceiling lights and lights were just popping from all over. And one of the really cool things about the Sweet 22 is how elongated the bokeh gets on the edges. And that's very obvious to see here. My focus, I was trying to get it was on the top of this, the ball, the silver part at the top. And I kind of think it's more on the hook and the circle at the top than anything else. But there is enough focus throughout this that it really just gives you a feeling of movement, although this is a static image. This is not even something that my eye could see. This is something that as I was exploring, with the camera up to my eye, this is what it is I found. And this is the kind of thing when I get motivated to keep going and find more fun things like this. Like once I took this picture, you had to like drag me out of the gift shop because I was just having a blast. The art of color. Color is something that draws a lot of people's attention as well. Green and purple, I have always felt were very, very royal colors. And when I see them in a landscape, you know, I'm just like, zing, I'm going right there. This landscape is in my front yard. I have a beautiful bed of these iris. I have not ever in my life taken a single picture, a close-up macro picture of one of these irises that I really like. I struggle with a good composition for this flower. I love flowers. I love almost all flowers, but give me an iris and I'm going to like fall apart. I was beta testing this the Twist 28, or maybe it was after the beta test. I don't know, but this was just this year. And I went out with the Twist 28 and said, I'm going to make this happen today. I'm going to create an image with these irises that I love. It was just as the sun was rising and coming up. Off to my left, where you can tell the light source is coming from, the sun was just coming up through the trees in my neighbor's yards. And it just highlighted this one bloom. And also with the Twist 28, you get a little bit of vignetting, but you also get a little bit of like I shouldn't say a little bit, a lot more blur around the edges. Now, I did crop this image slightly to put it a little bit more off center, which is why you see a little bit more blur on the left side than you see on the right. But look for those color combinations. Like take a look at a color wheel and, you know, look at the analogous colors, you know, look for the triad of colors, look for whatever it is that draws your attention and see if you can find it when you go out. We'll talk about the art of shape here. This is not something that I tend to see. This is one of my weaknesses. These are just Christmas trees, and they're the Christmas trees that are just created from lights, you know, hanging on a frame. And again, this is at Longwood Gardens. But when I saw the trees and how the ones in the distance were so small, and then they kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger, I used on this image, I used the double glass too. And pulled it off to the side. And what I loved about this was the bokeh kind of changed depending on how far away it got from my frame. But I did one more. I also pulled out an Omni because for whatever reason this day, the trees weren't just doing it for me. And this was one of the rainbow Omnis, and I did not record which one I used. But I got these really cool rainbow lines coming in from the left-hand side here. And my husband took one look at the image. He says, "What is that?" I said, "That's sliding into the holidays. That's what that is." It just like those lines just bring you right into the image and you can enjoy the triangle shapes and even the squares and the rectangles that you see in the planters. They're huge square planters that these trees were in at the bottom. And, you know, like almost each one of these squares down here at the bottom is one of the sides. So on some of them, you're seeing multiple sides. But it just became fun. And in this one, it truly just became about the shapes. Let's talk a little bit about patterns and repeating things. You see a lot of patterns naturally in nature and in places in the city or wherever. You see patterns all over, but sometimes you can create patterns. This is just a simple ranunculus flower in the middle of winter. The background is white because it had snowed. I have one window in my house that gives me the most gorgeous southern, kind of southwesterny, really light in the wintertime. And I have a little table that I set up in front of it. And whenever I want to shoot my flowers, that is the place that I go in the wintertime because that has the most gorgeous light. But this one flower really wasn't doing it for me. So I got out an Omni and was one of the crystals. And again, I don't remember which one. Um, and it could have very well been the repeater wand. Um, but it just kind of gave me this flower, but in a way more muted repetition. The other thing that this did was to block out a landscape trailer that has to be parked in my side yard there. So that was a twofold thing. Like, I love the beauty of the repetition of this, but it also blocked out something that I didn't want in my frame. So on this day, I very much succeeded in getting rid of something I didn't want versus that rose that I talked about a little while ago, where I had my hoops in the background and didn't want them. So learning to see those things and pay attention to those things is can be very enlightening and can truly improve your images. Let's talk a little bit about the art of connection. Connection can come from a lot of things. You know, it can come from people, animals, babies, and in this case, an insect. I went out to get the mail one day and my mailbox was covered with all of these little baby praying mantises. And I'm like, whoa. So I run back in the house and grab my camera and get my SD card and, you know, make sure that I have a battery in there. And I go running back out. I specifically chose my Velvet 85 for this because I wanted to get close because I really wanted this, you know, at least one of these little guys to fill my frame. But the Velvet 85 focuses at 9 inches from the subject, where the Velvet 56 closes at about 5 inches. And I didn't want to be that close. I didn't want to cause this little guy to panic. And I don't know if he would or he wouldn't. So I kind of started out far away and just rotated the lens out so that I was at the macro setting on the lens, and then just slowly got closer and closer. And just as I was getting ready to snap the picture, he turned his head to me. And, you know, I know that's his mouth, but it just kind of tickles me that it looks like he's going, ooh, like, what are you? So look for that connection when you're out shooting things. You know, maybe it's a person on the street, maybe it's an animal. I have deer in the yard, and they're so used to seeing me in the windows or the doors now that they look up and don't even pay any attention to me anymore. So, you know, they'll just kind of watch me for a minute and go back to what they're doing, which sometimes can be a little upsetting because I like the connection. I like seeing their eyes. I like seeing their reaction to me. But it doesn't always happen. But look for that when you have the opportunity. Let's look for contrast. Sometimes contrast can almost tell your whole story. This is an image that I shot with an optic that was discontinued a while ago. It's called the Lensbaby Obscura. And the aperture on this optic is crazy. And it's been so long, I don't even remember what it is. But suffice it to say that in order to get this sunrise image, I had to have my camera on a tripod. It was the very first optic Lensbaby product that I ever beta tested. And it really was something that I never fell in love with. However, in the back of my mind, there is this thing that I will challenge myself to find a way to like this optic. I'm not going to give up on it. This is one of the few images that I created that I really do like, and it's really about the mood that was set here. You know, it was just, you know, a lake at a park, and it was sunrise, and I just have enough detail and light on the overturned canoes that are just waiting for this day to start. But what draws your eye into this is the contrast between the lights and the darks, between the subtle color in the skies and the reflection on the lake. Let's talk now about some exercises that will help you to see things differently. If you like shooting macro, this is actually a great exercise to try. Don't take it from the same angle all the time. Take it from the bottom up. Shoot totally over top of your image. Shoot in between your images. That's what I did with that one tulip image in the very beginning. Here I had two sunflowers that were kind of like back to back, and their petals were going the opposite direction. I just shot the joining of those petals. So that's kind of the in-between. But if you're shooting a landscape, if you're elbow to elbow with everybody else that's taking the landscape, go find another perspective. Lay on your belly, get more of the foreground in it. I know people who have stood on ladders to get a different perspective in when they're taking a portrait image. So try to do things differently, change things up. Don't do them the same way all the time. This is a big one. Train yourself to observe instead of just look at things. There's a reason to study your subject before you ever lift your camera. This was another lesson that I learned the hard way. At the beginning of COVID, I took an online class called Beauty in Your Backyard. And I want to say basically it was like a birding class, but it could be almost anything. You could use it for animals or whatever. But one of the very first exercises that instructor gave us was to go in our backyards and sit our behinds down on a chair or somewhere and just observe. Leave the camera in the house. Can I tell you that was an impossible exercise for me because heaven forbid, what if I miss out on an image that I really like? But what I did to myself by not following her directions because I couldn't leave my camera in the house was I never learned the patterns of what the birds were doing in the yard. I never really paid attention to where the rabbits came out under the trees or where the fox were coming through or what the deer were doing. Every time I went out or found something in my backyard, it was kind of just accidental because I happened to walk out onto the porch and see them out there. I never really learned what the patterns were. A few years later, and I have since spent more time sitting outside without my camera. It's really hard to do, but it has taught me so much more and it has given me a new sense of appreciation for the learning and kind of really what goes on outside my back door. Look for leading lines everywhere you go. Leading lines can be very important in an image. They tend to tell people where to go. They tend to tell people what it is that you want them to see. So, in the bottom image, I used an edge 35. You can sort of see that vertical slice of focus. And just a creek in the middle of, winter with the snow on the ground, and I just kind of want your eyes to follow the creek. And then you get to the back and you have an area of the creek where the water is kind of still and you can see the reflection of the tree and the tree itself is in focus. And again, here's a picture on the right with kind of my cross-hatching effect that I really like. But I use the leading line of the path to lead you into that disappearing focal point. Like, what's going to happen if you go in there? Are you going to go explore a little bit further? So it brings a little bit of emotion into the work as well. Take a walk around town, or maybe while you're out running errands, and just look for reflections. You don't even have to have your camera with you. It'll just train your eye to see things. Think about puddles, storefronts, the hood or the bumper of your car. Somebody's sunglasses, you see those images all the time. In the bottom image, I took this at Longwood Gardens. And on this side of the building, in the summertime, this is where the lily ponds are. Um, and typically in the winter, these are covered. And I'm not 100% positive if this wasn't covered at this time because there was some construction going on, or if this was water laying on the cover of the top of it. But I loved the way that this pond completely reflected what was going on in this hallway full of lights and decorations. And the image on the right was shared by my friend Melissa. I was having trouble accessing one of my external hard drives this week, and she was kind enough to share one of her reflection images that she took somewhere up in Canada. But I truly love that this image is almost more about the reflection than it is the tree behind it. I just love the light and the depth and the color in this image. And I think she saw this image and decided that she needed to save it as well. Look for places where light and shadow meet. The contrast is usually very, very eye-catching. These are two just simple leaves, but the contrast of light and dark truly bring your eye to what I want you to see. The texture in the first one and the dark going into the little bit of light with the texture in the second one. You know, probably the same subject. I probably even shot these at the same time, but I got two completely different images because I followed the light a little bit differently. Look at places that you don't usually pay attention to. Look at the sidewalk when you're walking into work. Where do the shadows fall on your way in versus on the way home? Look at brick walls or like retaining walls. What textures do you see in the brick? Are there flowers or plants that obscure the brick? What interrupts the pattern of the brick? What interrupts any pattern when you're out there? The leaf that the praying mantis in the left was on definitely had patterns. But when you get to the end and he popped out, that was like, whoa, like that broke that pattern for me. So I will say in full disclosure, I was on a workshop when the girl who was leading the workshop found this little guy. But that was a learning lesson for me that day, that sometimes you have to slow down and look at those little details. Look through the leaves and see what you may find behind them. This exercise, I did not come up with it. Somebody named Adrian on YouTube, and he goes by at AWOS. And he'll tell you, I found this on his YouTube site, but he'll tell you he doesn't really take credit for it either. There's somebody else that takes credit for it, and the other person says it like a little bit more eloquently than he does. But basically, what he wants you to do, and I think this is a great exercise, is to pick one subject or one object. It can be signs, traffic lights, mailboxes, trees, windows, anything that you're sure to find in multiple places, and photograph them over a period of days or weeks. But don't just photograph them like a quick snapshot. Make a good image when you're doing it. Put together the light and the composition, okay? And take the time to edit them when you get home. Adrian on his site shoots signs, and he has some amazing images. And I realize that signs are something that I shoot often. I've never made it a project to shoot signs, but there are those signs that just, make me smile or make me laugh. And the top image here is an example of one of those things. There's the sign that says go away in the middle of two signs that say welcome. A complete contrast in thought and action and what you think is going to happen. And even here, the go away sign is white and the colors on the welcome signs are kind of more muted. And it just made me, like, this kind of just made me laugh. It made me chuckle. And also, like, the right half of this image is a little bit darker and the left half is a little bit lighter, although more in blur, because I used an edge 35 for this so that I got a vertical slice of focus. In the bottom image, the name of this pharmacy is really what made me chuckle. The dispensing company. I thought it was a really cool play on words. I wasn't worried about the bottom of this image. I was shooting this basically at midday. The sun was really, really strong and really bright. And I was blowing out everything on the bottom half of this image. So I used the edge 35 here and used a horizontal slice of focus to just let the rest of it fall away, because that's not my story. My story here, and what I want you to see, is the name of the store was the dispensing company. So think about something that might inspire you and just go shoot that one thing wherever you can find it. This is an exercise that I did when I took a year-long creative photography class. I gathered up a bunch of bottles and glass vases. Some of them I filled with water with food dye in it. Some of my vases had color to them. And I just stacked them all in different ways on a table and had a light source behind them. And I got in really close. And what I tried to do was shoot through the glass or where the glass overlapped. And I just got some really cool abstract images. The image on the top left, I actually shot with one of my Lensbaby Velvet 56s. I have two, because one's from my old DSLR and one is from my my mirrorless. And this was actually with the mirrorless, because I noted that on there. It was with my Z7 too. So I just tried to find what shapes and colors hit me. And I thought that they were interesting or cool and took a picture. Some of this color is actually the reflection of that light and water coming through and landing on the white paper that my vases were sitting on. But each of these images and taking each of these images really made me slow down and think and observe. I had to get out of my comfort zone, because this is not something that I typically do. I typically don't set up any of my work. I love it when it's found when I go out, when I am inspired by nature. But this taught me something about myself, that I can do this. And it can be fun to try things that are different. This is probably the last exercise I'm going to have you do, or suggest that maybe you do. And this picture on the left is just a snapshot, okay? But find a familiar place for you. Find, a building, a room, someplace in your backyard. Take a mental picture of it. And then go back later in the day or the next day and name 3 things about that image that are different. I do this every day with this hibiscus plant. It's right outside my porch door. And I look at this every day. So this was one day, this was the next day, and a lot changed. So not just the placement of the flowers, because those hibiscus flowers only seem to bloom for 24 hours and they're gone. But the day before, I didn't have a whole bunch of yellow leaves. Now I have a whole bunch of yellow leaves. And somebody was peeking out the window because the curtain is moved up here. And the color of light is different. And the shadow lines are different. Here I have a stronger shadow. Here I have a muted shadow at the top, but more light on the bottom of this image. So it's all the way that the light was falling around the house. This is like an L shape. I have off to my left was another part of the house. So, and there they are back together. So you can do this in many ways. See how much it is you see and observe, and notice what's different. Oh, I lied. That wasn't the last one. This is the last one. Take one object and shoot it 10 different ways. Think about shooting from different angles, different light, early morning, harsh shadows, midday, late evening. Shoot the whole scene all the way down to something small. Shoot with different lenses. This was my first image that I took. This is a planting of sunflowers that are in front of this picket fence near my driveway. And this was early morning. I tried to start this project in the early morning. I will tell you that in order to get images that I really liked, I went outside over the course of the next 4 days and probably 3 times each day to get enough images that they would be images that I would share. And if you're going to guess, almost all of them were macro. But each of these images is very different. Each of these images tells a different story. And I really had to dig deep. The image in the middle on the left-hand side has some little insect inside of it. And that is that lesson that I learned from the class that I was taking when the instructor found the praying mantis. Like, I was digging deep. Even the bees weren't around on the days that I was taking this. And the light was changing all the time. The very first day I had beautiful blue skies, and then we had overcast skies and smoky skies from the Canadian wildfire. So the color of light changes throughout all of these. And I just go with it. I don't need to sync all of them in Photoshop. I'm not doing like a big collage with this image where I want everything to totally match. But I got 9 or 10 different images, or maybe 11, just because I had to have a little extra fun. I did a 3 exposure in camera, multiple exposure, and came up with this. So I was, killing 2 birds with 1 stone, as the saying goes, but I was trying to get the most out of my sessions as I was running in and out of the house. So, so what I want you to think about here is learning and learning to see. And the ability to learn turns out to be a function of the extent to which one is capable of perception change. If a student goes through 4 years of school and comes out seeing things in the way that he did when he started, he learned nothing. I was listening to a conversation by a group of adults when I was in high school, and they were talking about the advantages of college and yada, yada. And one of the adults says, but college is about learning how to learn. And I thought, geez, I thought college was like learning how to be a teacher or learning how to be a doctor or, a lawyer or an accountant. But all of this education is really about learning how to learn. It's learning how to open up your mind. It is learning how to see things differently. And that's how we grow as humans, and it's how we grow as artists as well. So, I am Kathy Coleman. I use Kathy Alice on social media because nobody would ever remember how to spell my last name. But if you want to reach me, I have a Lensbaby website. It is kind of like my portfolio. I haven't touched it in a while though, but I have albums on each of the lenses and optics that I own. I have an album on the that uses like the Omnis that I have, and there's an album on there of some of the videos that I have done. I've done some quick things that I have posted on social media, like in my stories and things. So if you're looking for what does this lens do, you can check out my website, and you can click on, if you scroll over it, is how it works when I'm on the computer. If you scroll over the front of the album, it tells you what images are in that album, like if it's the Velvet 56 or the Sweet 22 or the Edge 35. So those images are in there, in categories by albums or optics that they're shot with. So I'm going to stop my screen sharing right now and open this up to questions.
Amazing. And first and foremost, guys, in the chat, please give it up for Kathy. That was absolutely incredible. I wasn't joking when I told you that you're about to go to school on a Thursday night. I mean, you kind of basically start off with the ABCs. I was like, that was not a plant that happened. But it was amazing. And and I think that, I love watching your work and seeing the way that you see the world because there's something so fascinating to me just about photography in general as I head into 32 years of having a camera in my hand and I think about it, it's like you said something like somebody will see something and you will wonder where they were standing at. And like I think about that a lot in people's works like, how did you get that shot? Like, how did you? Because I couldn't get that. There's praying mantis, the bee, the like, how, right? And so I just want to first applaud you. Absolutely incredible. And the chat is obviously blowing up for you. Just so you know, we're definitely at time on the event, but there's hundreds of people left. I think we should stick around for like 15 minutes, answer some more questions. Are you good with that, Kathy?
I'm happy to be here for sure.
Okay, amazing. So, guys, couple things, just again, housekeeping notes, just because I've gotten pinged about them a few times. One, please keep in mind this is being recorded. If you go to our YouTube channel, it's already there. It'll be there tomorrow. It'll be there the next day. So don't worry about missing the recording if you missed Liz's incredible presentation or came in here late. So that is going to be available for all of you guys. More questions about the summer discount. Guys, it will expire. So we're doing $30 gift card for all of you who are here live right now. And if you use the code SUMMER, the number 30, SUMMER 30 at lensbaby.com, that's for $30 off anything over $100. And this is our biggest sale of the year outside of our Christmas sale. So if you've been wondering or you got inspired by Kathy or Liz, go and grab something because that code's going to expire and we're turning off the sale in a day. So now's an amazing opportunity. So again, that's summer, the number 30. I'm tossing it in the chat again for you guys just so you have it. But I think that should answer all the questions about that. So if you have questions, and by the way, YouTube, we see you guys too. So if you have questions for Kathy, throw them in the chat right now. But over here in ours, I'm going to hit just a few, just product wise, before we go over to your Q&A, because we have some product specific questions. Um, Tina asks, is there a possibility that Burnside will ever be brought back? No. I can tell you that with certainty, and it's my second favorite lens probably of all time. Unfortunately not. You're gonna have to go find it at resell. Rarely on our refurb sell, we might have one, but check eBay, check Facebook Marketplace. Unfortunately, it was easily the most difficult lens we have ever produced. And the team was like, we never want to do this again. So, unfortunately, no to that. Um, Another question here I want to answer just product wise. Will the Obscura be coming back? Nope. The Obscura, I can tell you with 100% certainty, will never see the light of day again. So if you want one, eBay, Facebook Marketplace, they exist out there in the ether. It's funny. I personally love Obscura, but unfortunately, again, it's just one of those things that are so hard to make. If you guys understood the full process of doing this, you'd be like, Lensbaby's insane for trying to do this. But that said, just go Google, go search it. Somebody always has one for sale. That said, let's jump into some questions here. I think that covered the ones that I wanted to hit for you. Oh, wait, one more. Somebody said product line. What's next? Stick around. I'm not gonna tell you. I know, but you don't know. So
Oh.
hang out. Make sure you keep showing up for lensbaby.com events and stay here, stay connected to us. That said, toss your questions in the chat for Kathy. Wow, amazing. Virginia just wrote, that was very beautiful, Kathy. I was just about going to give up on flowers and Lensbaby. Thank you.
Uh, don't give up. Don't give up. Give it another try.
Yeah, and just like Liz talked about, like, and I talked about earlier, like is a tool. You got to learn it. You've got to go through the process. And that's just part of it. Sandra asked, what lens did you use for your Longwood garden building?
Um, I just went back through the presentation. I'm not 100% sure, to be perfectly honest with you. I just opened up Lightroom and went back and looked, and I have 40,000 images from Longwood Gardens. It's going to be a little while to narrow that down. Um, so I can't answer that question, but you know what? If you want to shoot me a message on social media, I'll look it up for you.
We had one question. Hey guys, if you're putting questions in the chat and not in Q&A, they're going to get lost. Make sure you throw them into the Q&A, please. Cheryl, I just happened to see this one. Are you finding the Edge 35 is one of the best for street photography?
I actually think any of the edges are really good for street photography, but it just kind of depends on like what your favorite focal length is. I got the Edge 35 first, and that's the one that I have used the most. My next one was the Edge 80. And if I tell you that I use that for flowers as well because of the macro extension on the end, I just recently got the Edge 50 and I haven't had time to play with that as much. But I think any of the edges, like with the 80, you're just going to get a little more reach, and with the 35, you're going to get wider. So that's kind of a personal preference, but I do think the edges work beautifully for street photography.
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan. Same, Edge 80 is actually my favorite street lens. I really like doing slice of focus when I'm out in the streets. Um, where is the next question? That was very beautiful, Kathy. I was just oh wait, we read that one. Sorry. I thought I hit it was beautiful, so you get it twice. You mentioned the old Velvet for DSLR and Velvet for mirrorless. Does this mean I don't need an adapter for my Nikon? Depends on what your mount is. So you may or you may not. Our customer happiness team is more than happy to help you. If you email customer happiness at lensbaby.com, they will guide you in the right direction. One of the questions was, how did you get the crosshatch effect with double exposure? What does that mean?
So I used my mirrorless camera's double exposure effect, and I used ICM at the same time. So I was using a longer exposure, and I'm moving the camera during the exposure. So for the first exposure, I usually move the camera vertically, and for the second, I move it horizontally, and that gives you those lines that you see in the image.
Yeah, and almost, I mean, I think the first time it was in camera was maybe like a Fuji X100, I want to say. It's been a long time. Pretty much every camera has double exposure now. So you probably have a setting, check your manual, check YouTube. It's probably there. Um, have you used the Spark? What are your thoughts on it?
The Spark is the one thing that I don't own. I think I have almost all of it and many of
That's
the
funny.
retired things, but I do not have a Spark.
I'll send you one. I didn't know you didn't have
I'll
one.
have to grab it on a sale or something.
That's funny. I didn't know you didn't have one. Um, the Spark is early Lensbaby adaptation. Now we of course have Spark 2.0. It is there's no way to describe it other than it's a squeezable lens, and you just have to experience it. You're either gonna love it or hate it. I'll be honest with you. Personal opinion, because I'm a big fan of being honest. I don't mess with it because it just drives me nuts. But there are so many people who absolutely love it. I'm like, good for you. Um, so find the thing that suits you. That's kind of what I talked about with Liz earlier. Find the thing that makes you feel fired up and calls to you. Teresa just wrote in the chat, I have both the original Spark and 2.0, my favorite by far. So you're talking about her favorite, my least favorite. That's kind of the way it goes. Um, let's do maybe two more. It's getting late in the evening here. We appreciate all you guys. Thank you for being here. I hope this has been amazing for you. Diane asks, what is your actual favorite lens and why?
All right. If you told me that I couldn't have any other lenses, I would probably pick the Velvet 56. Um, that was truly the first lens that I fell in love with. And when I bought the Velvet 56, before I bought it, a friend and I were going away for a weekend, and I rented the 56 and she rented the 85, and we both shot Nikon, which was really good because we could trade lenses over the weekend. And I loved the compression of the 85 better. But because I knew that I probably wasn't just going to shoot flowers and I wanted a lens that I felt was going to be more versatile, I went with the 56. The 28 wasn't out at the time, that didn't even exist. And I just felt like I would be able to do more things with it. And I kind of still feel like that way, but I mean, the compression of the 85 blows me away. So it does have its time on my camera now. And even the Velvet 28 does as well. So I love the Velvet 28 if I am like going hiking with my husband because now I can do landscapes and it has macro capabilities. I can focus as close as 5 inches from, the flower on a cactus or something. So the versatility of a lot of these lenses really makes them, really good things to have in your bag. Like, I can do multiple things and not have the weight. As I get older, I'm trying to kind of not carry all the things with me anymore. So I'm still going to pick the Velvet 56, though. That is my all-time favorite, but I'm rarely without at least one other lens when I go out.
Love that. Yeah, and for me, I've said it many times. It's edge for me. It just there's something about it. You know what it is? I think it's the miniaturization. Like I love standing on top of a building and then shooting something, and then it just feels like it's a whole different size. Like I think that's super cool. That said, we're gonna wrap it here. It is late. It is Thursday. Some of you guys actually have to get up early and go live your lives. Go grab your cameras. Go enjoy your lives. That said, one more time in the chat, just huge thank you to both of our incredible speakers, Liz Wilson and Kathy Coleman. You'll be able to find all of their information and more. They are all over our YouTube channel, all over our Facebook, our Instagram. They are Lensbaby ambassadors. They are amazing photographers and even better human beings. One more time, guys, as a reminder, the special discount we have for you guys is the code SUMMER30. SUMMER 30, and that will expire tomorrow. This is only for you guys here, just as a way to say, hey, thanks for hanging out with us on an amazing Thursday night. We appreciate you. Thank you all for being here. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and until next time, my friends, shoot extraordinary. We'll see you soon.